So friends, what does a year in the life of a small Reiki business look like? That's what we're going to take a little peek at in today's video. Friends, welcome back to Heartscapes, where we are learning the system of Reiki to feel rooted, spacious, connected, and to remember ourselves. My name's Michaela. Welcome back to the studio, and welcome to this, year in review video, taking a peek into a little bit of the behind the curtains of my small Reiki business. My mission is to provide comprehensive Reiki education and spaces where people can look within themselves using the system of Reiki and other supportive systems to live a life that is rooted, spacious, and connected. This is, what I feel to be my purpose, my mission, following the threads of my life for many, many years. And when I began this business and decided that I would step into this work as my full-time job for the first time in my life, trying out entrepreneurialism, I was very naive. And I thought that I could step into my purpose, my passion, my skills, the things that had been really helping me in my life, and to turn that light on other folks and offer them this beautiful service. And that would be enough to build a tiny little business that was sound enough to keep my family floating along and perhaps even thriving into the future. However, I learned fairly quickly that there's a lot more to running a small business than I had originally anticipated. And I knew practically nothing about those things. Perhaps some of you are in a similar position or were in a similar position, or perhaps quite the opposite. Perhaps when you started your small business, you knew full well, right, eyes wide open, that you would be stepping into a particular challenge, and perhaps you built the skills and mindsets and tools that you needed on the front end. That has never been my style. I am definitely a jump into the water and build the ship while we're sailing kind of person. And while that has led me into some really amazing things that I wouldn't have been able to anticipate had I not operated that way, it's also, put me in a position of sometimes just really not having the security, the knowledge, the infrastructure, the support to get where I needed to go. And so at a certain point, about 2 years into this journey, I really kind of faced the facts that I needed to get some business training under my belt if I was going to make this thing work. And, fast forwarding to last year, having spent the last going into 4 years working with business coaches and a peer group of really amazing small entrepreneurs who are in very similar places as myself, and have really formed a group of accountability and support and celebration. I'm in a very different place than I was before. Last year, I decided to share a little bit of this behind the scenes view of Heartscapes with those of you who have been following along on this YouTube end of things. I share a little bit about, what we're up to in Heartscapes proper inside of this YouTube space. But last year I just decided to kind of pull the curtain back and just let you know what my strategic planning was looking like for this year. And, I hope that would be helpful, or at least interesting to some of you. At the very least, it gave me a record of that time. And it was supportive. It was helpful for some of you to see that. And it was definitely helpful to me to sit down and talk it all through. So I decided to just circle back with you this year and kind of do a similar thing. So in this video, I'm going to just review what I hoped to get accomplished in 2023. Just let you know, in all honesty, where those things ended up by the end of the year. Kind of took a red, yellow, green approach to assessing whether things were completed, partially, completely, not at all. I'm happy to say there's more green in the ledger than red, but there's more red than I would have liked. So I'm going to go over where those projects stand. And then I think in a separate video, so that it doesn't turn into a monster of a video, I'll share the planning that I'm doing for 2024. Okay, so I think with that, we can jump into this year in review. So let me start with just kind of sharing a little bit of an overview of the structure of my business and kind of a little bit about how we've gotten to this place. So technically, I'm a solopreneur. I am the only official employee of my business, Heartscapes. However, I do have a co-teacher for my core Reiki curriculum, and I have a teaching apprentice who also helps with some of that teaching. So not exactly employees, but collaborators that kind of make up our small team. I have a few other community members that I collaborate with on other projects, and I this year was able to work with a few volunteers. So a very loose net community of folks that really make this programming happening. But essentially, it really is me kind of producing everything. The program that I went through, the business training program, that really helped me to understand my business as an entity, as an organism, as a system. And I really do credit them for helping me keep my business alive through COVID, through 2020, when everything shut down and I had to really pivot my business. I think without having spent several months really building up the bones and understanding the bones of my business, I'm not sure I could have made that pivot at that time. So very grateful to them. That organization is called Women in Community, or WINC, and they specifically work with female identified entrepreneurs who are, solo entrepreneurs or in a partnership that is a, relatively small business, and that is either looking to launch, looking to strengthen and build, or to go to the next level. And they have a particular genius working with people in healing arts, in the arts generally, in wellness spaces, and in spaces where there's a bit of a social mission to what the business is up to. And I'll put their information down below in case something like that would be of interest to you. And so through that program, I was able to really, again, identify the bones of my business. And so what that looks like is centering on the experience of creating spaces where people can shift things in their life to help them live rooted, spacious, and connected. That's why I open every video with that phrasing. And to do that primarily through the system of Reiki, and more increasingly, and we'll see that as we go into the year 2024, through the practice of soul collage. Over my years of being a practitioner of various things, working inside of universities, inside of nonprofits, I've developed quite a bit of skills and knowledge and methodologies that all kind of center around the same goal of building resilience, building a sense of grounding, building a life that is, I'll say it again, rooted, spacious, and connected. But when it came down to building my business, I really needed to focus in on one thing that I could really build and focus on over a period of time. And I decided that was Reiki, because that was what was most established and where my heart was called at that time. So the heart of my business is teaching the system of Reiki from the perspective of its Japanese origins, to help people build a life that is rooted, spacious, and connected, to help people develop a self-practice that can support them in creating their vision, shoring up their internal resources so that they can make solid next decisions towards their purpose in life, so that they can contribute in the ways that they are meant to their families, to their communities, and to the world. My background before beginning Heartscapes was in social justice leadership development, and I saw very up close and personal the ways in which the people who are making the biggest contributions to the world, who are giving their whole heart and soul to positively impacting communities, are often the people who are carrying the heaviest burden and who are taking the heaviest toll on their health, their livelihood, their wellness, their emotional life, and their bodies, their physical health. And that was something that I wanted to impact. I wanted to create a space where people could stay connected to their purpose, to the work that they feel called to do in the world. And that can be going out and making social change. It can be raising a family. It can be making art. It can be whatever one's contribution genuinely is. But to be able to do that from a place of resourcefulness, a place of feeling abundant, feeling enough, feeling connected, and to have a accessible system of practice to return to over and over again in the midst of life to help bring that sensation of groundedness, that sensation of spaciousness and of connectedness. I've seen how powerfully that impacts our lives when we have that resource at our fingertips. It absolutely changed my life from a place of scarcity, of stress, of dissociation, of feeling trauma, to a place of just really feeling quite the opposite of most of those things. And so, pivoting around that experience is what Heartscapes is here to do. Our methodology is primarily the system of Reiki and the system of soul collage, enhanced by a wide range of other teaching methodologies, modalities, concepts, art, creative, intuitive, imaginative responses to the moment that I've just had the privilege of building up over my career, over my life. And so we do that in a few different ways. We do that through a core 9-month program that I'll talk more about when we get into last year and this year's goals. That really walks people through a comprehensive, spacious, focused, structured, deeply connected process of learning these systems of practice and integrating them into their lives. And then it is supported through other forms of classes, of community engagement, of ritual space holding, both online and here in my studio in Davis, and community building. And then also special projects that I get to do with other organizations in the community. It also includes social media, so this YouTube channel being the primary one, our Facebook group, various other ways of connecting. And in the future, I want it to also include some pieces of writing that are kind of brewing in the back of my mind. So teaching those things both online and in person is kind of the way in which Heartscapes does its work. And so over the past couple of years, really figuring out a structure for providing these services that would be supportive of both myself and of our community was of paramount importance. Of course, the pandemic impacted that greatly. And while it did cause that kind of crisis point of needing to shut down my in-person business, pivot to an online structure, that was very difficult and challenging. It also created some incredible opportunity to expand the way that we do our work, primarily into online spaces. And ultimately, I'm grateful for that because it offered an opportunity to build a lot more flexibility, a lot more creativity, and to just introduce, methods of doing this work that I never would have considered had that not happened. So that leads us to where we are now. Looking back at the last year, 2023, what we were able to accomplish and what we are going to be carrying over to this next year. So let's just jump into that. So the planning structure that I use was adapted from one of my colleagues in my Wink accountability group. I've been meeting with this group of folks for, going on 3 years. And it's really been amazing to have a consistent space to show up with people who care about me and who know my business really well, and can help me stay on task and to brainstorm and to celebrate and to share resources with each other. So for those of you who are doing this kind of work as a solopreneur, one of the biggest challenges can be feeling isolated, feeling like we don't have colleagues, like we're just out here alone doing this work. I really strongly encourage you to cultivate a group of allies, of accomplices, of folks who can hold you accountable and to celebrate with you, to brainstorm. If you want some ideas on how to go about doing that, please drop that down below in the comments, and I'd be happy to share some ways in which I've done that. I've actually had a number of different accountability groups over the years in different formats, so happy to share about that. But one of my colleagues shared her structure for planning, and it's a very simple structure. It works well. There's some layers of depth to it that I'm not going to go into in this video, but we'll just kind of go over the touch points. So it begins with identifying the principles on which we want to operate our business for the given year. And principles are a little distinct from values. I do have a set of values that are kind of the foundation of the business as a whole. The principles in this context are more about, how do I want to feel? How do I want to go about my work? What are the kind of the feelings and the sensations and the ways of being that are going to help guide me in making decisions? For example, where am I going to hold a principle of strength and stretching and growing myself, which will mean making some decisions that are uncomfortable in a good way, versus where might I want to lean into rest and being slow and more cautious and more careful, which will lead to decisions that might feel more restful, but will probably lead to less growth in the business. So getting clear on some of the ways that I want to feel in my business is a really powerful way to think about how we make decisions. So we start with identifying 3 to 5 principles that we want to build our year on. And then look at our priorities for the year in 5 or 6 different categories. So the principles that I landed on for last year, how do I want to feel inside of my business? I wanted to feel spacious. I wanted to feel that there was room to breathe, to enjoy the process without stress, pressure, overwhelm, as much as possible. So spaciousness. Last year, like when I was planning for 2023, I really wanted things to feel easy. Things had felt really, really hard for a couple of years. I kind of just needed a year where things felt more easy. The way that I defined that was that things would feel intrinsically interesting. The things that I would choose to do would be enjoyable, that they would be generative, that they would, even if it involved, work, and, certainly there's periods of time where you're putting in more hours, you're putting in more effort, but that effort feel kind of juicy, and so that there's an ease to it, which meant maybe not taking on projects that were particularly ambitious, or however that looks like in a given choice point, really. I wanted things to feel aligned. So specifically aligned with my purpose, with my dharma, with the that which I feel is mine to give to the world, which I talked about a little bit at the beginning of this video. But really wanting to honor my authenticity and my unique contributions, and really in the realm of supporting our community to feel resilient, to feel grounded and spacious and connected. Lastly, I wanted to choose projects and to move in directions that I could give my whole being to, that I could create from my head, my heart, my gut, my spirit, and to be in collaboration with the unseen. I wanted there to be a sense of, being in collaboration with the world, with my whole self. And a lot of what that meant was really being true to my Reiki practice, because that is really part of the outcome of being in that practice. And so that really required, really focusing on being consistent in that practice so that I could do my work with my whole being. So those are the 4 principles that I wanted to use as, that compass point, right, to help make decisions. It's not that every moment of the year needs to be spacious, easy, aligned, and with my whole being, but that would be that North Star that helps to guide decision making. From there, the priorities that I set for myself were in the following 6 categories. Things that I wanted to teach, things that I wanted to create, things that I wanted to lead, things that I wanted to build, and things that I wanted to learn. And so that is how I organized the projects. And so after going through a kind of, very spacious brainstorming process, pulling down the things that came up into these categories, and then really looking at them and assessing which of these projects feel aligned with the principles that I've set, that feel reasonably achievable, even if some of them are a stretch, and that would feel like it would move my business in the direction that I wanted to go strategically. And so this is the list of things, and you can see the the color coding there, the red, yellow, and green. Green is things that I accomplished in the fullness of what I set out for in 2023. Yellow are things that I accomplished a fair amount of, but not in the complete form that I'd imagined. And red are things that I just flat out did not do, did not complete. Maybe I made a tiny bit of progress on them, but not enough to really, say that this project was moved forward. So it's really helpful to see that there were 3 whole projects that just did not get done. Probably means I was a little too ambitious in what I set for myself. But that's okay, because for me, this is a roadmap that carries many roads, many possible detours, many possible directions that one could take. And, at a certain choice point, maybe I go in this direction instead of that direction, and this one kind of falls off the map and doesn't get explored for that year. And that's okay, right? Because as long as I'm making choices along the way that are well aligned with that North Star, then it's going to be okay to let some things kind of roll over to the next year. So some of these things will just literally roll over to this year and stay a priority. And there's a couple of them that are going to change or fall off. Okay. So let's jump into the specifics. So in the first category of things that I wanted to teach this year, the big one, the primary, was the refinement or the full development and operation of our, what at that time was a year program. So for a long time, I had been teaching Reiki classes in the way that is commonly done in kind of weekend classes in level 1, 2, and 3, letting those be standalone classes and, helping people to move through those classes in a pace that works for them. And there were a lot of things about that structure that work well. It's compact, it's easy to deliver and for people to say yes to. But there were things about it that did not work well for me and how I wanted to teach and to learn. What I had really longed for as a learner of a system of Reiki was a deep dive, almost a grad school of Reiki, right? A comprehensive Reiki education where I could walk with a cohort of people in a committed period of time that felt spacious but also structured, and in which we could really grow and integrate our practice and daily life more so than was possible in that kind of intensive weekend format where you have an intense experience, you learn a whole lot, or you experience a whole lot in a short period of time, you feel a lot in that short period of time, but it's really challenging to sustain that feeling once you're out of the container of that intensity. And for the system of Reiki, particularly practiced from its Japanese origins, this is a simple and yet elegant structure. It's a very simple and elegant framework for living our life. It's subtle, and in that sense, really requires spending time with the practices, with the concepts, observing our life in the context of those practices and principles, and working it into our life over time. And so I knew, fairly early on when I started teaching about 7 years ago, that ultimately I wanted to move to what in my mind was a year-long program. And that felt huge and difficult. And 2 years ago on my planning, and so going into 2022, I decided that it was the time to make the leap, to make that change. And so that means that in the intervening couple of years, that's been the kind of beta test period for this program. So last year, 2023, we had our first cohort finishing up because we would start in January and July. And then we had a January cohort that ran all the way through 2023. And then we started a new July cohort. So in this past year, 2023, we had a real concentrated opportunity to develop this program, to observe how it operated, in action with 3 different cohorts, to just observe, is this a good structure? Did we design it well? Are my theses about it correct, that having a container like this is a better way to learn and integrate Reiki, when the perspective is this is a self-practice, this is a practice for self-development over the long term? And then also to take feedback from the participants and from our own observations to make refinements and to improve the program. So really coming to the end of 2023, this was the opportunity to really look back and assess all of those things, to kind of look at this beta test of the last 2 years and to, decide, are we going to stay with this structure? And if so, what changes do we need to make to improve it? So that's exactly where we are now. So that goal was absolutely achieved. So that's a green line. We did these 3 beta tests, the first 3 cohorts of this program, and we really did throughout the whole time pay attention to assessment of the program, to refining the quality of what was presented, to really stick with the question, is this a quality program, right? Is this curriculum that we've designed solid? This is a place where I got to really draw on my background in university and curriculum design, and also in curriculum design within spiritual wellness programs. I'm just really grateful that I kind of have both of those structures under my belt: formal curriculum design in colleges, universities, and curriculum design within spiritual wellness spaces. And I can say confidently and with pride and joy that yes, we built a really, really solid program. The quality of the content, of the curriculum, of the pedagogy, the way in which we deliver the material is so good. It feels good to be able to say that, like when you build something and you germinate it, you watch it grow and it's a little baby and you see its potential, but you don't know where it's going to go. To be able to kind of look back and say, yeah, that was good. It feels really good. So thank you for letting me share that with you. So the content, good. The curriculum, solid. Methodology, awesome. There were some structural changes that were clear would benefit the program. And so we've got green light for this past 2023, and going into 2024, the launch for the next cohort will reflect those changes. And so I will share those with you in the next video when we look into 2024. The second thing that I wanted to teach for this year, and to really, it was more about solidifying, because this is something that was already present, but really wanting to make it more formalized, which was the special topic classes that we teach. And those special topics classes come in a wide range. On the one hand, it's an opportunity to offer some really clear augmentation to the core Reiki classes. So for example, our Cultivating a Trauma-Informed Reiki Practice class, I've offered that quarterly for the past almost 3 years. That's kind of it's a solid class that's going to be offered, that will continue to be offered regularly, that augments Reiki curriculum for folks who want to practice Reiki professionally. And then on the other hand, it's an opportunity to, follow my own creativity, my own interests, and those of the people around me, and create new classes that are responsive to those things. And so what I wanted to do for 2023 was to create more of a consistent structure for offering those things, to kind of ease the marketing cycle around that. Marketing, friends, do you feel me? Creating consistent, effective, long-term marketing strategies that effectively connect with the right people who want to engage with our product, buy what we have to sell. And that does that in a way that feels in integrity to who we are, that doesn't feel gross at the end of the day. This is one of the biggest challenges for people doing work like me, because we're not in it for business, right? We're probably not even in it for money. I've had to come to terms with the fact that I am not very money motivated. It's a problem sometimes. I'm motivated to do what I love to do, right? And so many other folks are. But in order to do what we love to do and to be able to continue doing that, we gotta market what we have to sell. That's one of the things I really loved about the WINK program, is it really emphasized developing marketing that was effective and that felt in good integrity and alignment with who we are. So really thinking about it as connecting rather than selling things, although, those things coming together. Anyway, I digress. needing to really have consistency in the way that I offered those supplementary classes in the marketing and development and delivery of those classes was really important. So I developed a quarterly model for kind of what would get offered in each quarter, that it would be relatively consistent, and succeeded in tightening that schedule up. There's more to do there. I would call that probably a yellow. Let me see, yeah, that's a yellow in the overview, because I did kind of shore that up, make that a little bit more tight, but it wasn't fully consistent the way that I want it to be. But basically the way that looks right now is that we do a quarterly 21-day practice that is aligned with the seasons, and that is looking at various aspects of Reiki practice. I do the trauma-informed Reiki class quarterly, and that one actually has gotten a major overhaul that I'll talk about in a different section. And then I do a monthly free class. So that's a way to offer, a place for me to be creative, a place for people to connect with Heartscapes, and essentially it's part of my marketing. If you have been hanging out with me on this YouTube channel, you might have seen those classes come up because I share the replay here on YouTube. So really integrating the offerings with the way that it's marketed and being consistent with that over time was the goal for 2023. And as I said, that ended up as a yellow category. Improvement over the past, but definitely further improvement to go, and that'll be part of 2024. Okay, so those were the two things that I had under the teach category. So moving on into the create category. So these are things that we want to develop, right? Things that don't exist yet that we want to create, that we want to bring into the world. And we have a mix of red, yellow, and green in this category. I'll just get the red out of the way. This is a project that it's kind of one of those things that it really does need to get done, but it's not it doesn't feel so important. So it kind of just keeps getting kicked to the bottom of the list. But that's a major revision on my manual for Reiki 3. It's a very specific kind of creating project. I've written my own manuals for all of our Reiki classes. And the Reiki 3 manual is not in the shape that I want it to be in. So kind of revising that, writing a few new sections, and just kind of pulling that together in a better way. The thing that I did complete, though, that I'm so happy got done, that was a real big push for me, was a beta test of our Reiki teaching apprenticeship. So teaching teachers is part of my purpose. It's part of what I love. I absolutely love working with people who want to teach the material that we're learning. And it's a long-term investment, because those are going to be folks that have probably been through my programs, that have, kind of learned in the way that we work, and that are committed to taking it to the next level. It's a real minority of my students whose goal is to teach Reiki. What I've learned over the years is that my niche, the people that I work best with, and that tend to be attracted to me, are people who are primarily interested in Reiki for self-practice and self-development, possibly for working professionally with clients or integrating it into their work in some way. Very few of them feel like they want to kind of make Reiki their full job and teach it and kind of go on in that direction. And that's totally fine. I love working with people who want to take this into their life for their own self-development. That is definitely where my heart is. And so it's kind of like a special unicorn when somebody, really wants to take it to the point of teaching. And we finally had one of those folks approach us last year. One of our students who completed the first round of our year program. And that really became the push to formalize, again, what had been on my heart for a long time, which was to create a teacher apprenticeship. Part of the delay was trying to figure out what the structure would be. There's no standardization, no formalization about how Reiki teachers get minted. It's actually quite a wide range from, on the one side, people who say that, well, once you've taken Reiki 3, and you've learned about attunements, then you go forth and teach however you want to, all the way to, teaching as a completely separate skill set. It should be its own class. You should have special training in teaching Reiki that is separate from Reiki 3. A lot of people will divide it into like Reiki 3A and B or Reiki 4. I find that I am somewhere in the middle. I strongly believe that teaching is a separate skill set from practicing Reiki or practicing anything, right? Teaching the thing is different than doing the thing. And, I obviously have a certain bias coming from a higher education, background, right? Working in higher ed, doing curriculum development, like, really seeing from behind the scenes what it takes to be a good teacher. And, how often teaching isn't as solid as we need it to be. I greatly value teachers. It's like, it matters so much to me that the people who want to help others to gain knowledge and skills around things that matter to them, that those people be passionate and be skilled themselves in the realm of teaching. So teaching is a separate skill set from practicing. And many people have teaching competency that comes to them through other aspects of their life, right? So what I decided was that I'm not going to decide for my students whether or not they're allowed to teach once they've taken my Reiki 3. If a person comes through my Reiki 3, they're going to learn how to do Reiju, attunements, initiations, which is essential for running a Reiki class. They're going to they're going to have all of the material, they're going to have all the curriculum, and they're going to have opportunities to work one-on-one with me, because part of the year program is one-on-one sessions. So they could use that time to ask questions about teaching. If they want to go it on their own and teach based on their own feeling of competency around teaching, then they have my blessing. And they'll have everything they need as far as content goes coming through our program. However, if they want to specifically have a learning experience around the skill set of teaching, so this is curriculum development, it's pedagogy, how do we teach, what are the methodologies, deeper dives into the content itself, how to understand the content from a teaching mind rather than a learning mind, just a wide range of strategies of how to deliver this material well in ways that engages our mind, our heart, our spirit, the honoring the lineage of the material itself, really pulling that all together into a flexible but firm container to hold for our students. If people want to learn behind the curtain strategies for that, I want to teach them the methodology that I have learned over many, many years of working in curriculum delivery. So that's what I did this year. I created a pilot teaching apprenticeship, designed a structure that involves a set of coursework that goes over topics like I just described: pedagogy, curriculum design, how to teach the 3 levels, and so on. And then a practicum period where the person would essentially be a student teacher, an apprentice teacher in the year program with students. And so this student who approached us has done that. She's almost through the complete cycle of that. It's worked really, really well. She's been very flexible on letting me build the ship while we sail it. So kind of building curriculum for the teaching apprentice based on our interactions. It's been hugely valuable to me working with somebody with that mindset that's kind of willing to get in the trenches and create with me. It's just been so rewarding. And so as a result of that, I've now piloted, beta tested a teaching apprentice program. And we'll be going through a similar kind of refinement process, kind of shoring it up and creating a formal version of it to begin to offer widely in the coming year. So very excited to say that is a green light item on my list. Very successful, near completion of that process, and I'm very excited for what's to come with the teaching apprenticeship in 2024. All right, so 2 more items on the create list, a green and a yellow. So in the green, I wanted to develop and pilot an Evergreen online course. So what that would entail is purchasing an online classroom There are such a wide range of options. Just researching which platform would have the right balance of functionality and affordability was super overwhelming. And in fact, that research project was like my 2022 goal. And so that I did eventually land on using the platform Thinkific, and did acquire a basic level Thinkific classroom. I look forward to being able to afford to go up to the next level, which has more functionality to it. But my goal for 2023 was to develop one complete class in Thinkific and launch it and start working with it. My original plan for that was to develop a class based on the work with intuition that I did for about 2 years. I ran a monthly intuition lab and developed a lot of really kind of juicy curriculum around the topic of building our intuition and kind of using Reiki and other practices to do that. That is still an intention that I have, but what I realized was that it was really overwhelming to do kind of the tech learning, the kind of growth edge of working with new technology, and to completely develop a class from the ground up. So developing the curriculum and then recording all of the content, because these would be basically pre-recorded, self-paced classes that people could purchase and walk through at any time. So I decided to shift that plan to working with a class that was already largely developed and would take less effort to transform into the Thinkific platform. And that was our Cultivating a Trauma-Informed Reiki class that I mentioned before. So I've taught that class a number of times on Zoom, online, live, in various formats. I experimented with different formats in terms of the amount of classes and the length of classes. And so the curriculum was developed. I already had several kind of good recordings of the class. So that made it relatively easy. I mean, it still took a lot of time. I did a lot of editing on those videos, a lot of cleaning up, and then getting everything into Thinkific. But it worked out really well. And that class is now live. It's been sold a number of times. It is now something that people can take whenever they want, but I will still market it quarterly, 4 times a year, in the same structure that I was using before. But it's now much more flexible, more easily accessible, and it frees up my time because it's now no longer something that I have to plan, a whole weekend to deliver. So that is complete. I feel really, really great about that. And in the next video, I'll talk about what my plans are for that classroom space for 2024. And then finally, the last thing that I wanted to create last year, and I knew going in that this was an ambitious project and that it likely would not be completed in 2023. It was not, and much, much less of it got completed than I had hoped. So I put this as a yellow, but probably more honestly, this is more of a red. So that same Cultivating a Trauma-Informed Reiki class, when I first developed it a couple of years ago, I wrote a really comprehensive manual for that class. It's about 77 pages. It's pretty good. I'm very happy with it. It's very comprehensive accompaniment to the class, and is of course provided in the new online version. So when I started offering the class, a number of people asked, was I going to publish that manual as a book? Was I going to flesh it out into something more substantial and to offer it as a standalone book? And I definitely want to do that. So I did put that project on last year's plan to at least, move forward on that process, which would involve researching, publishing, reaching out to publishers, creating a manuscript that could shop around. There was some stupidity with how okay, look, y'all, I'm just going to tell you this as a cautionary tale, okay? I ended up taking my draft form of this manual, putting that into Canva, and then basically writing the whole rest of it in Canva. This was a ridiculous thing to do because now I do not have a Word document, an editable, shareable Word document with the complete manuscript. It's all in Canva. And so the first step that I needed to do was simply copy and paste the thing out of Canva. But if you've ever worked with Canva, you know it is not a word formatting document development system. It's a graphic system. And so like the text is just all of these tiny little text box on 77 pages of material. And so just copying and pasting them out of Canva became a whole stupid project in and of itself. And basically that's as far as I got on that project. So that's not true. I did some research on publishing, and I have 2 publishing houses that feel like they could potentially be a good fit. My strong preference would be to have a publisher pick this up and, want to take it on as a publishing project. I don't want to self-publish it. I'm not closed to that possibility. I know a lot of people who've successfully self-published, but I would really, really rather turn it over to a publisher. So that project is definitely going to roll over to 2024. Okay, moving on, things that I wanted to lead. Now, there is just one entry in this for 2023. And sadly, it is a yellow. It is not something that got completed. But it is something that got developed and that will get rolled into 2024 and I have high hopes for. And that was to lead an in-person retreat. Now, my vision for it last year, which is we'll see what happens to this, but was the intention for it, and part of why it got stalled, is that I wanted this retreat. I wanted to kind of go back to my roots of all of my years of working in social justice leadership development. And I wanted to create a wellness retreat for social justice leaders that was really there to help them to rest, to renew, to refresh, to reignite their passion, to reconnect with their purpose, why they were doing this incredibly difficult work that they do, to give them a place to be celebrated and rewarded for that, to really rest and to be just taken good care of, and to go through activities that help them to really reconnect with their purpose. And I wanted it to be funded so that these participants did not have to pay for it. It's one of the awful things about this structure, and part of why I started Heartscapes in the first place, is that it is because the work of doing social change work is so hard and so underfunded. There just isn't time and money for the people doing the work to take care of themselves. And so burnout and health issues and mental health issues are just rampant in these fields. And I hate that. I want that to be the opposite. And there's been a lot of awareness building and a lot of shifting around this in the last decade. And I'm so grateful for that. I always point to the work of Adrienne Marie Brown and Sonia Renee Taylor as leaders in the kind of reclaiming wellness and resilience and kind of spiritual depth and artistic creativity inside of social justice work. And so I really want to create this experience for people who are in those sorts of positions that they don't have to come up with the resources other than the time to participate. So researching funding for that was the sticking point, because it's a really hard thing to fund. It doesn't fit well into most grants, right? They want to fund the work. They don't want to fund wellness for the employees necessarily. It's not to say that that never happens. It definitely does. But I didn't come up with a funding source last year that was kind of available that I could apply for this particular vision. I still have high hopes that that absolutely could happen. It's not a ton of money that would be needed. I would certainly take something of a loss on it. Not a loss, but it wouldn't have to be like a big money generator. I just need to, not take a loss on it. I have high hopes that there might even be private funders out there who might be really happy to just, share a few $1,000s to create an amazing experience for people doing good work. So if any of you know such a person, or if you are such a person, or you're connected to a foundation or a grant giving entity that might be happy to fund something like this, please get in touch with me, because this is very much still an alive, potent idea on my heart. And knowing that that funding challenge is going to be huge, I have the other way that I worked with that was to create a curriculum that could be delivered really to anybody. And so what I'll be moving forward with in 2024 is doing an in-person retreat that is a paid retreat for anybody who would like to participate. and it's going to be magical. It's called Souls on Deck. I'm so excited about it. I'll tell you more about it in the next video when we talk about 2024. So that was a yellow, leading the Social Justice Leaders Retreat. Ongoing. I have faith that it's going to get done. And yeah, again, connect me with your funding sources so that this can be something that is a gift to our community. Okay, so 2 more sections to go. And to me, these are really connected to each other. And this is really about, okay, given all of these ambitious projects, how are we going to get there? So this is more in the strategy. So what do I want to build? And what do I want to learn in order to achieve these things? So just a few entries in these categories. Firstly, I needed to learn basic video editing skills. I had none other than the very limited editing that's available inside of YouTube. And so this was another kind of research project that felt kind of overwhelming. There's a bazillion, programs and platforms, paid and free, and all the things for just basic video editing, right? Like, it's definitely a very common skill that people have. It's a common sort of digital product that is available, but it just overwhelmed me as something I hadn't dealt with before. So it wasn't until really, getting towards the end of 2023 that I really kind of settled on a very simple free video editing platform, and then just spent the time experimenting with it and, playing with videos and figuring out how to edit them, so that I could do those online self-paced classes in Thinkific and have them, be just a little bit nicer than what I could do otherwise, and to apply that to YouTube as well. You might have noticed, if you've been following this channel, that there's been a few videos that have music overlaying in them and some text, and just a little bit more complex editing than before. And by complex, I just mean like basic editing is what I mean. So continuing to grow those skills will be definitely on the agenda for 2024, but that was a green line because I did get to the point where I felt pretty good about putting together that online class. And then on the marketing side of things, my marketing strategy, needed some development. So some specific things, basic things. I wanted to grow my subscribers on this YouTube channel. I am so grateful to this channel. I'm grateful to you for being here. I don't run this channel as a money-making thing in and of itself. Like, it's, if it ever was monetized, that would be great, but it's not the goal. The goal is really to be a point of connection with you, to be a place where I can talk about what I do, and you get to, hear how I talk about things and how I teach, and, see if that feels like a good fit for you. And if that relationship exists only here in this YouTube channel, I'm grateful for it. I love the interactions that I get to have here, and the fact that I can just sit down in my studio and just share from my heart about what matters to me in this work has been a great benefit. I mean, it improves my morale in the work to be able to do it. But it is also part of my marketing strategy. So that means it does need to function that way. And so for YouTube, I had a couple of goals. I wanted to get more consistent with posting. Y'all, consistency is just my Achilles heel every single time. I struggle with it so much. And so I've come to a place of, like, when I say consistency for myself, it's fairly flexible. So my ideal is that I put a video out every Monday, Wednesday, and or Friday. But honestly, if I get 2 videos out a month, I'll call that consistent. I really do want at least once a week, but that doesn't always happen. I just kind of let that be flexible. But definitely YouTube rewards consistency. And so continuing to do that better is definitely important. But I did manage to increase consistency, increase the frequency of videos that came out, and almost reached my subscriber goal for this year. I wanted to hit that first kind of milestone of 1,000 subscribers. And I believe as of today, December 30th, I am at 914. So I'm pretty close. I'm going to call that a win. I'm going to call that. I think I was at about 500 when the year started. So doubled the subscribers. I'll take it. I am going to set a more ambitious subscriber increase next year, partly because, you know, it is cumulative. As you gain subscribers, YouTube shows your channel to more people, so the momentum can increase. At least that's how it's supposed to work. So I am going to set a fairly ambitious subscriber goal for this coming year. But for 2023, doubling it from 500 to nearly 1,000 feels pretty good, feels like a win. I also wanted to similarly increase my email list. For some reason, this is really hard for me. I really struggle with kind of the conventional ways of kind of getting people to put their email on my list. I also had an ambitious goal of increasing my email subscribers to 1,000. Did not get anywhere near, like not anywhere near that goal, just barely past 500. So that is something to put some strategy around. I just need to get more strategic about that, because that's a really, you know, important way to stay in touch with folks, the folks who actually want to hear from me. But both of those avenues have been a really powerful way to stay connected with all of you. And this YouTube channel has indeed brought folks into Heartscapes who found me here on YouTube. And I'm super grateful for that. Maybe you were one of those people. Thanks. Glad to have you here. So those are kind of marketing goals, things to build for this past year. And then I wanted to conduct more regular reflections on the effectiveness of those things. That was really hit or miss. Again, the consistency thing. So I put that as a yellow. I did not do it monthly as I had intended, but let's say I did it quarterly. We'll go with that. So that is something I'd also like to increase for the coming year. Okay. Gosh, these videos always get so much longer than I thought they were going to. Thank goodness I divided the two up, because we'd be here all day. If you're still here with me, thanks so much for your interest in this behind the scenes look at Heartscapes and what we've accomplished in 2023. I'm really proud of it. You know, there was some really big, important projects that moved forward in significant ways this year, and that feels really good. For the year program, which has now been modified to a 9-month program, we'll talk more about that in the next video. You know, the goal really for this past year was to focus on quality, to really get the quality solid. And for this coming year, I really need to focus on quantity. I need more students moving through this program in order for it to be financially sustainable for me. So I'll be talking about that in the next video, how we're going to approach that. If you have any questions or insights, or just want to commiserate on your own challenges as a small business owner, I would love to hear them. If you want information about anything that I've shared, I'll put the link for the Women in Community Business Development Program down below. Please do reach out with any questions or commiserations. It definitely helps me as a solopreneur to know that there's folks out there going through the same stuff, and maybe it helps you too. That was a lot of talking. Take a breath. So friends, as you go throughout your day, as you go throughout your work life, your life fulfilling your purpose in this world, and maybe your life as a business owner, may you be deeply provisioned for every step of the way. Thanks so much for being with me. I hope to see you in the next video where we go over plans for 2024. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.